Undertale, a game that came out as an indie game and immediately blew up on the internet to almost meme levels of popularity. But why did it become so popular? If you take an outsider's glance at the game, there's nothing that's a massive achievement from a technical standpoint, having simple graphics and working with gameplay mechanics that aren't too drastically different from a game made out of RPG Maker. I believe that the success of Undertale came down to a few key things that separates it from most of the other games out there. Firstly, and perhaps most importantly, the game has very memorable characters. In an average video game, the focus is almost entirely on the main character and their quest to change the world in whatever way the game wants you to do. In those typical games, almost all the other characters, save for maybe the final boss, are entirely forgettable or just plot elements that are there solely to progress the storyline. Think back to a storyline-based game that you've played in the last couple months. How many non-player characters can you really remember the name of? And if you can distinctly remember more than a couple, was that game also a really good game to begin with? In Undertale, many of the NPCs are given a solid soapbox to stand on and introduce themselves and the personality to you as the player. Furthermore, the characters are presented in a way that's interconnected with one another because each of the main NPCs reference each other and their relationships as the storyline progresses. With very few exceptions, you end up knowing quite a bit about a boss character before you actually end up having to fight them, as opposed to some games where they literally just pop out of nowhere and then roar, you have to fight them right now, big boss, scary! Probably one of the most talked about aspects of Undertale is the choices that are in the game. The choices you can make actually matter. When most people think of Undertale, they think of the pacifism/genocide system that allows you to change how the storyline progresses and ends by your choices throughout the game. The standard go-to of RPGs, which Toby Fox, the creator of Undertale, is probably taking an intentional jab at, is that you must defeat every bad guy in combat to make your way and progress through an RPG in any way whatsoever. Undertale's combat system gives you the option to actually not fight an enemy at all, and instead you can choose to spare almost every enemy you come across in the game. In combat, this is just another way of resolving any encounter, but why the option to spare enemies is significant is because of their immediate impact on the storyline. If you choose to slay one of the aforementioned memorable NPCs, the other characters in the game take notice of this. A missing person upsets the balance of the whole ecosystem, and as a player, it's very hard not to feel a little bit guilty for letting that happen and actually going off and killing them when you had the option not to fight at all. In short, the game makes you reflect on your actions. Nevertheless, because of curiosity about how the game actually changes when you decide to go the other route, a good chunk of players, myself included, went back to the game, played through it a second time to experience the other style of play. You can either kill everything in sight, or you can give mercy to everyone, or you can of course take the standard ending, which is somewhere in between. The first time through, of course, it does legitimately feel good to play the good guy when you don't actually have to be the good guy. It's a lot more significant when you have a choice that matters. I don't think it would be fair to talk about the game without mentioning its excellent soundtrack. I'm in the boat of people that believes that the audio experience of a game is critical to the overall mood, especially when you're trying to evoke certain emotions from people. Most tracks in Undertale are highly iconic. You can recognize them, you know exactly where they're from if you hear it a second time, and most important characters even get their own theme, which helps to drive home the memorable character aspect as well. Give a track like Megalovania a listen, and I think you'll be hard-pressed to find a more memorable boss theme that was released in the last year. A big aspect to the game's likability is the fact that it's light-hearted and just simply fun. It could be argued that many of the games out there take themselves way too seriously for their own good. When it comes to scenes that people actually like to share around with their friends, I think it's twice as easy to hit with funny or wow moments rather than just presenting them with solid gameplay or high-def graphics. If you need any proof of this, just look up the popular top 10 lists on YouTube and you'll see that most of them are about the funniest, weirdest, or scariest things out there in the world. As a game, Undertale, being a loose spiritual successor to Earthbound, is comfortable with poking fun at itself and the RPG genre as a whole. When the storyline throws out plenty of not-so-subtle jokes, there's no real reason to be so uptight about the whole thing. Despite being graphically and mechanically simple, the game and its plot are easy to enjoy, and there are definitely some moments that are so cheesy that you want to share with other people so that they can get a shot to see them too. Undertale is the kind of game which is not only good, but also is easy to share around with other people and good at inspiring fan creations. When the characters are fleshed out and unique, it becomes easier to associate with them at a certain level. It's hard to forget the tunes in the game to the point where if you're anything like me, you actually might want to add them to your playlist and relive some of the moments in the game. Any game that becomes personal through its storyline, its decision making, and the immersion is going to be one that you want to talk about. In my opinion, Undertale blew up in popularity because it's the kind of game that you can fall in love with without relying on complex mechanics or AAA graphics, yet you still want to talk about with other people. So I've been Dark Skeleton, what do you think? Did I hit the nail on the head or did I miss it entirely? Feel free to let me know down in the comments below, and I'll see you in my next video.